Welcome to our show, Obsessed, where we talk about cryptids, mythology, folklore, and whatever else we're currently obsessed with. I'm Caitlin Palmer.
And I'm Clay.
And we're
Obsessed.
Hey everybody, how's it going? It's your best friend Caitlin. Hey, how are you? Did you have a great week? We hope you did.
I like how you always pause.
Yeah,
Like,
I never...
They're supposed to respond.
Well, it's like Dora. Like, I look at the screen and smile with dead eyes.
Can you help me start my podcast? Great!
Hey, thanks! Clay, I have probably the best topic ever. This is a thing that I have been honestly obsessed with, and that's the man-eaters of Tsavo. I don't know about our listeners, how much you know about them. The gist of it, it's man-eating lions, as the name suggests.
Right, but not like mythical creatures, real ass lions.
This is a true, honest to God, true story. It's one of those examples of truth is stranger than fiction. My obsession with this story started when I was a kid. I was a weird kid. Where most little girls had dolls and teddies, your girl had a T-Rex I drug around everywhere and played in the mud. My parents rented The Ghost and the Darkness, and I freaking loved it. It was scary, it was true, and it was lions. Side note, I was also obsessed with The Lion King as a kiddo, and my brother got me the cardboard cutout from the movie theater, and it's got Simba, and everybody on Pride Rock. I probably colored on it or something.
I was going to say, I haven't seen that, so I don't think you have it.
No, I was like a babby.
A wee babby.
A wee babby. Like, I remember I was like in my parents, like it was still at that age where you'd go sleep with your parents sometimes. And I was like, no, Simba.
Well,
also, Simba is lion in Swahili.
Right. And Scar's real name, whom I forget, means like trash or something.
It does. Isn't that horrible?
Yeah.
I think I would have mutinied also. But The Man-Eaters of Tsavo is a book by Colonel John Henry Patterson, aka J.H. Patterson. Now, the movie The Ghost in the Darkness, it's obviously an adaptation from the book. I used most of my research from the book because it is John Henry Patterson's account of what happened.
Right, yeah.
Movies, it's a good movie. But
I've actually never seen it.
Really? Well, we're going to watch it.
Why didn't you make us watch it for the research?
Oh, ooh. You want to do it tomorrow?
Like, put off the podcast and...
The podcast?
Put off the podcast?
Put off the podcast, kid. We'll have to watch the movie. It's very good. Now, the book is in the public domain. It was first published in 1902.
So an old book.
It's old. The event of the Lions of Tsavo happened in the very late 1800s. Some of the language is a little outdated because white people. Most of my information was taken from this book, as it is a first-hand account of this crazy story. Some of it seems unbelievable. It was said that by those who were there that Colonel Patterson, if anything, underplayed the story.
Yeah, I mean, there's they have the bodies, right? That they have them taxidermied and put in a museum.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, this is as real as.
No, we have their skulls. They've done scientific studies on the skulls. We're going to talk about that. John Henry Patterson. It said he knew people would think he was exaggerating.
So he tried to downplay it.
So he kind of downplayed it. And it's still, when I tell you everything that happened, you're going to say that didn't really happen. But it did, based on him, based on his men.
Yeah, it ain't like there were only a handful of witnesses to all of this.
No, there were over 8,000 witnesses to this.
And a lot of people died.
This is true. A lot of people died. We're going to talk about how many. That's up to debate. But we're going to look into it. I also have to give credit to articles from Live Science, National Geographic, and an awesome YouTube video by Bob Gleeman titled The Full Story of the Man-Eating Lions of Tsavo. So it's like the Cliff Notes of the book, whereas the book is about a 6.5 hour listen. The video's about an hour, and it's got pictures, and I liked it.
I can say a 6.5 hour audiobook isn't that long.
No, it's really not, but it's in the public domain, so there's a lot of different a lot of different readers, and it kind of throws me off because I kind of bond with the person who's reading the story, and I wasn't able to develop that relationship, and that made me sad. I think that John Henry Patterson, he seems like he was a really good guy. A tough boss, but a good boss. He used the men's names. He showed great respect and a decent sense of humor. I believe he really did care about his men and took their safety seriously. Now, him being a white guy in Africa that killed lions, it kind of makes him sound like a pompous asshole, right? Like he was there to kill big game. He loved Africa. He didn't go there to hunt big game.
I say, at least from what I know of him, the hunting of the lions was more like...
It was a necessity to save the people.
Right, yeah.
I am always in favor of the animal, but as we go on, you'll understand why he had to. He had to save his people.
Yeah, you don't really talk about like malicious intent when it comes to animals killing somebody. It's usually just like, yeah, that's nature. That's what happens.
Right.
They kill to eat. But obviously these are different.
These are very different. Do lions eat people? Not typically. I mean, there are man-eaters. Lions are going to be more aggressive during courtship, but typically they'll just avoid people. So it's not, while it does happen, I'm not saying lions don't eat people because they can, and they have, but this is not, everything in this story is not normal lion behavior.
Right. It's kind of like sharks. Sharks don't go out of their way to eat people.
Right.
I imagine it's the same deal with lions, that humans are too much of a difficult prey item. And in the animal kingdom, it's all about efficiency.
Sure.
That's why they always go after the young, the elderly, or the wounded, because why burn extra calories?
Exactly.
Fighting for the same amount of meat.
Exactly. And normally a lion is going to see a big group of people that has lights and sounds and fire and say, nah, bro. That ain't
not want
my time.
anything to do with it.
Yeah, no. But these guys loved it.
They loved all the lights and sounds.
They loved the lights and signs. Now, the whole reason that John Henry Patterson ended up in Africa was the Kenya-Uganda Railway. This was significant for many reasons. According to Google, it brought about population growth, economic opportunities, and urbanization to many of the interior towns alongside the railway. During World War I, it helped the British defeat Germany in East Africa and allowed Britain to maintain communication with other colonies. It was also instrumental in decreasing slavery in East Africa, as it was cheaper to transport cargo on a train. So it was a worthy cause.
It was a good thing, yeah.
It is. Our boy JHP, that's John Henry Patterson, he was only 30 when he landed in Mombasa, where he would then take the train to Tsavo. Now, Mombasa's nickname is the Island of War. Tsavo is a large coastal province of Kenya between Nairobi and the Mombasa. It's also the name of a great river. It's home to a particular variety of lion, where the males have little to no mane. The word Tsavo also means slaughterland.
Oh.
So Tsavo, the place, has very dark history. It was a slave route where they would march slaves. There were warring tribes that would kill each other. I mean, there's a lot of blood in the land of Tsavo. A lot of times, bodies would just be kind of unceremoniously left out to become food for scavengers. Our boy was commissioned by the London-based Uganda Railway Committee on behalf of the Imperial British East Africa Company within the jurisdiction of the British Protectorate of Uganda as a railway engineer. And that's an exact quote.
Okay. Read by who, by chance?
Me.
Oh, okay.
He was basically an enforcer. He's the guy that tells you what to do. He's like the foreman. And the only acceptable answer is, yes, sir. But he was a good guy. I like JHP. Patterson was sent to hasten the results and ensure efficiency. He was to accompany a medical officer to Tsavo and work on the railway. Well, there was also an understood goal that they were going to beat the other team that was building the railway from the other side. So there's the river, right? And there's the two sides of the railway coming into the middle.
Gotcha. So it was like friendly competition.
It was friendly competition, and our boy was going to win. There were 8,000 Indian laborers. So this was a huge camp set up by the river. It was 8 or 9 miles. This wasn't, when you hear it's a camp, you think like a campground.
Yeah, I pictured a couple hundred people. Maybe,
no, it was
not 8,000.
It was like a whole ass city. The laborers were excellent. They worked tirelessly, clearing the earth and working on the railway. And our boy knew he would need more supplies soon. He speaks fondly of how the workers, but especially one he nicknamed the boy, and Ungong Singh. Singh was a strong warrior, strong in both mind and body. Sometimes the way John Henry Patterson talks about his men kind of makes me wonder. Like, it's cool. Like, it's cool, JHP. Live your life, my dude. Ever the explorer, Patterson took a look around the area. The very next day, the rumors of lion attacks began, but Patterson ignored it. It was not one, but 2 maneless lions who were named the Ghost and the Darkness. And over the next several months, they would rain terror down on those who dared to build the railway and bridge. Lions are quiet when they hunt. When they're roaring in the distance and it stops, they've chosen a victim. They've begun stalking their prey. A few days later, Singh went missing, and Patterson started to take the lion rumors a little more seriously. This was notable because Singh was a good worker. He was always punctual, always friendly. When Patterson asked where he was, the response was, the devils took him. Actually, he was pulled from his tent, crying and screaming, and the other people in the tent, because there were multiples in a tent, watched him. There was nothing they could do. They heard everything. They heard everything. Cries of Kabar Dar, which means beware, the devil is coming, became a regular saying at the camp. Now, John Henry Patterson did find pug marks, which are lion prints, as well as large amounts of blood and human heel and hand prints where a human was drug away. The other warriors said it happened at midnight. Singh was grabbed up by the thigh and pulled into the night. Ew. They chased the lion, but it kept stopping to lick and chew at the flesh. Later that day, they did find the tattered remains and the prints of 2 large lions. They buried the remains under stones. It was noted that the body was destroyed except for the head, which still held an expression of horror. They buried the body under stones, but brought the head back to camp for identification. Patterson noted that had he known then what he knew later, he would not have been worried about a burial. He would have been watching his back. He would not have had his back to the bush. That night, John Henry Patterson and the boy, it's funny because we have a cat we call the boy. So when you say the boy, you have to say the boy. And that's the whole reason I included the boy. I was like, the boy! The boy spent the night perched in a tree. John Henry Patterson and the boy spent the night perched in the tree, while some of the braver coolie followed with lights and a goat for bait. They watched and waited for the lions. Patterson didn't come here to hunt lions, but darn it, looks like he's hunting lions. Let's be honest, the trophy hunter in him was probably super excited because 1800s white people.
Yeah.
Giant lions. It was a thing. It's pretty frowned upon now, but, it was the 1800s.
I was going to say, he wouldn't have been excited if he had known what was going to happen.
Mm-mm. They heard roars and breathing throughout the night, but never saw the lions. They listened and waited, all the while growing more nervous until they heard the screams and roaring at the camp, miles away. They waited until morning and returned to camp, where they discovered that another poor man had been stolen away and eaten. The next night, Patterson told the boy to camp near the tree with some goats and possibly cattle for bait. They waited and waited, and then they heard more screams coming from the camp. Patterson shot into the air to alert the boy, and they ran to the camp, where within they found evidence of yet another victim. The lions didn't pick out someone at the edge of the camp like you would expect. They were well within the camp. and would have passed up thousands of other potential victims. There were no roars that night. There was no fear of mankind.
Like I say, yeah, that's extremely atypical because they are ambush predators by nature. So you would expect somebody to maybe go on the edge of the camp to take a leak or something by some tall grass and then get snatched up and drug into the...
Exactly.
Not them walking deep into the camp and basically opening up a tent and picking one.
It was scary because it was almost like they picked somebody.
Yeah.
Patterson knew this had to stop. So he halted the railway work and had the workers condense their camp and round it out. This way, they would have a better chance of shooting the lions. They busied themselves building bomas, which were walls made out of thorns, essentially, surrounding the camps. And even some of the individual huts and tents were surrounded by bomas. They set up things to make noise. They kept fires lit. Even still, there were 7 new victims over the next 8 days. Some days, the lions didn't visit the camp, but their visits were growing more and more frequent. At one point, a lion stole a man's mattress and flipped the man off of it. The lion destroyed the mattress. We can only imagine the lion was very disappointed. I'm sure the guy shit his pants and probably told that story at every social gathering.
Oh, yeah, no, he's got water cooler talk forever.
He does. He does. I mean, I would. If I survived the man-eaters of Tsavo, you better believe it.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it could have just been any lion and it would have still been good a story, but...
Right, but especially these guys.
Yeah.
They did try to hunt the lions during the day, but you have to remember that it's dry, and the cracking of grass or a limb would surely alert them of their whereabouts. Patterson was able to track them to the river, but then there were stones, and that made further tracking impossible.
Yeah.
Stones and water. At one point, this is my favorite story. At one point, a merchant came by on a donkey during broad daylight, and one of the lions attacked. But somehow the lion's leg became entangled in the donkey's reins and burden. The lion was spooked and did that thing where cats get plastic bags stuck on them and start running from it, except it was a whole ass donkey.
It's a whole living donkey.
A whole donkey. Unfortunately for dad ass, he ran off. The donkey was still with him. The merchant was so terrified that he climbed up in a tree and stayed there till the next day when some more merchants came by, and then they left together. Another fun story for the 1800s water cooler.
Yeah, about how a lion took the donkey from underneath him.
And would have taken him.
Yeah, so that donkey definitely got ate, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Then again, another man was being attacked when in confusion the lion grabbed a bag of rice, which was later found discarded, but the lion escaped. But now, unfortunately, the lions did win more often than they lost.
Yeah.
Now, Patterson was never worried about himself. He was worried about his men, though. He spent his nights in the tree and had the days hunting and tracking. He didn't have a boma around his quarters. Being a high-ranking official, he obviously had sturdier lodgings. It never occurred to him that he might become a target. One night, he was talking with a medical personnel and they heard a noise. They went outside, didn't see anything. They went back inside and finished their chat. The next morning, boom, pug marks all around his cabin. It was at that moment, seeing those tracks, that Colonel Patterson knew it could be him next. Another fun story of someone surviving the lions. Let's just get these out of the way because there's about to be a lot of killing. Another time, a man stepped out of his quarters to pee and found himself face to face with a lion. He tripped over a table. I would have too. The table toppled over and actually saved his life. The lion went through a vent and into the infirmary where the injured people were. And of course, they did drag somebody into the bush.
Yeah.
Yeah. At one point, the lions learned that the infirmary was an easy place. They moved the infirmary at one point. And the old infirmary, because lions sometimes return to old hunting grounds.
Right.
So the old infirmary, they baited it. They poured blood all in it. They waited for it. The lions attacked the new infirmary. And, of course, ate some people. But alas, that railroad it wasn't going to build himself. Work had to resume. Progress on the bridge and the railway was slow. And at one point, Patterson actually said that was more annoying than the lions, which is kind of funny. That's like a very higher up thing to say.
Yeah, like, oh, I am inconvenienced by your lack of productivity. We're dying.
Yeah, no, we're like actually being eaten.
He's like, it's only 1 or 2 a night.
Right? And a lot of people, the reason most of these men stayed so long, because the camp was so big, there were so many of them. The camp was so large, there were so many people that the likelihood of them being the next victim was actually pretty low.
About 1 in 8,000. So.
Right. Now, I don't like them odds.
Yeah, it's pretty high to just die.
I mean, that's like there being a murderer in our town.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you think about it like that, people would have been more afraid.
Right.
In reality, it was very similar to that.
Honestly, it was. Now, the lions were once cornered, but not shot, despite desperate tries. They were in such close proximity to the men that the men actually had ear pain from all the shots. They shot at the lions. Hold on, I'm going to pause because something just happened. And we're back. Our cats knocked over something, and then a train went by. I said that we should keep recording because there's trains, but Clay was like, no.
It'll annoy people because they'll think that, like, there's a train going by their house because it'll sound so faint.
I don't know that everyone lives as close to a train as
well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they'd be like, oh, that's weird. There shouldn't be a train outside my house.
Oh, God, it's a tornado.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you live, that might be a very reasonable suspicion.
Right. So there was one point where both of the lions were cornered. The people shot at them and didn't hit them.
Damn.
They shot so much that one man went permanently deaf.
God dang.
So
they did also have old.
Oh yeah, they had those
old,
like
crappy
old
guns.
ass rifles and everything. Yeah, Patterson remarked that. I mean, they didn't even touch him. There was no blood, nothing.
God dang.
And Patterson at that point said, "Well, maybe we are hunting ghosts." They did make a makeshift, kind of like a guardhouse. So what they did, they took a wagon and they barricaded themselves, like the people who were standing watch, in the wagon. And they left out goats and cattle as bait. And guess what happened?
I assume the lions avoided them.
They did, and then they ate some dude. There was a period of several months of peace. There were no attacks. They were starting to believe maybe the lions were dead. Maybe they did shoot them. Because it was hot, it's Africa, they began sleeping outside under the stars. The lions hit again. Normally the lions would take their meals several miles away before consuming them, but this night they preyed right outside the camp. The attacks then resumed with the same ferocity as before. The lions even began roaring again prior to their hunt, announcing the oncoming slaughter, something they had stopped doing long ago. Patterson was quoted saying, "In the whole of my life, I have never experienced anything more nerve-shaking than to hear the deep roars of these dreadful monsters growing gradually nearer and nearer, and to know that one or another of us was doomed." When the roaring began, the workers would gather and whisper that the ghosts were here. The devils were coming. And what a hopeless feeling.
Yeah. I mean,
like, just sit with that for a minute. That's terrible. You know? Exactly. They did everything. I mean, like, they did everything right. They had lights. They had sound. Well, I mean, you know, when they were on their A game before they thought the lions were dead.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you know, to be fair, if they were killing a person a night for weeks at a time and then suddenly they stopped for like a solid month or whatever you'd said.
Well, a few months.
A few months.
There's some debate on exactly how long, but it was long enough that it wasn't unreasonable to think that the lions were dead.
Yeah.
The next victim was eaten within earshot of the camp, possibly less than 50 feet away. He could have shot, like Patterson felt like he could have shot the lion, but he felt like a premature shot would lessen their chances of killing the beasts come dawn. At night, they were pretty much invisible.
Yeah.
But naturally, they left before dawn. At this point, many workers had finally had enough and they left. Can't say I blame them. They were all at-will employees. But damn it, we needed that bridge.
Oh, you mean railway?
Well, so it was a railway, but then they also had to build a bridge for the railway to go over
okay,
because
sorry.
Tsavo is a place, but it's also a river.
Right.
So, discouraged, Colonel Patterson lamented that he spent more time worrying with these lions than he did with his actual job. Seeking help, he wrote to Mombasa and was answered by the district officer, Mr. Whitehead, who fancied himself a big game hunter. He said he would bring a group of Askaris warriors. They were a tribe that part of their coming of age was actually killing a lion. So they were fairly experienced.
It's kind of dope, I'm not going to lie.
It's really kind of cool. But on the way there, Whitehead was late. You know, he was supposed to arrive by this day, and he didn't. And then the next day, he still wasn't there. Because he was attacked by a lion on the way to the camp.
Wait, so it was just a lion, or was it one of the Tsavo lions? Don't know.
He had been pounced upon while the Askaris unloaded the luggage. His shirt was torn. It swiped at him and tore his shirt. But his helper actually kind of stepped in and intervened, and then his helper was carried into the bush.
Oh, yeah.
So it was almost certainly one of the Tsavo lions. It was close to the camp. The remains of this man were never recovered.
Listen up, nerds. I'm sick, so that's going to be the quality of this ad read today. That being said, this show was brought to you by the All Creatures podcast series on VetCandy. In the words of its creator, it's like X-Files and Scooby-Doo had a baby together. Now, I'm not going to speculate on what that baby might look like, but if you enjoy hearing me and Caitlin's voice, go ahead and check it out. If you're in the veterinary field, you can use it to keep on top of new information about diseases and treatments as it relates to veterinary medicine, and even use it as continuing education credits. Find it on myvetcandy.com. Another thanks for sponsoring our show, and now back to the episode.
Patterson had been working on a trap. A box made of railway ties and strong timber doors and a guillotine door. So the lion would walk in, and then the trap would be sprung, and the peep would be in a box protected from the lion by some bars. They could then shoot the lion. Like the lion basically was caged, and then they could shoot it.
Right, yeah. It trapped in basically a kill. Well, I guess it is called a kill box.
Yeah. No,
a literal
honestly,
kill
it
box.
is. So think like a giant live trap, but there's people on the other end. They're
with
separated.
Guns.
Right. With guns, and they're separated.
And there's only one direction to shoot.
Exactly.
And it's into the lion.
But the only thing between them and the lion is a wooden cage door. The shooter would be safe in the box-like compartment, separate from the lion. He waited all night and was unsuccessful, as during the night he heard screams coming from the camps.
At least he was safe in the box.
From the box. Well, the people in the box were like waiting, laying in wait, and then they heard screams coming from the camp. They're like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
At one point, one of the lions did go into the trap. There were guards in there. They had him in his sights. They froze. Everybody was cheering like, yeah, shoot him. But they were frozen. Then they started shooting with abandon. Like they just went ham. They did not hit the lion. The lion is in a box. They did not hit the lion. In fact, one of the bullets hit the door in such a way that it released the lion.
Oh my God.
Days later, Patterson was told that one of the lions was by the river. At this point, he was very familiar with the area. Remember, he'd been tracking them. He'd been going out during the day trying to find their lair. So he decided he was going to take matters into his own hands. He grabbed a gun, marched to the river, and indeed, he found a lion that was feasting on a carcass. Patterson had them in his sight and shot, but the gun he used was not one he normally used, and it misfired. After some fumbling, he did manage to use another gun and land a shot, but it wasn't fatal. The men rejoiced, believing the man-eater was dead because of bloody footprints, but Patterson knew this was not the case. Imagine the disappointment.
Yeah.
Like, he has really been trying.
And literally everything has gone wrong.
Literally everything.
He shot the door open.
It literally shot the door.
The door open.
That sounds unbelievable, but there are multiple accounts. This really happened. Colonel Patterson continued his ritual of waiting up in a tree at night, and it finally paid off. One night, Patterson was stalking the lions, and then one of the lions ended up stalking him. He finally faced off with the lion and did shoot it. And then he kept shooting it. The lion groaned and then was quiet. Remember, it's dark, and it is like dark.
Yeah.
Patterson then went and told everyone that one of them was gone, and he was revered. They wanted to go out and get the body that night, but they wouldn't be allowed because the other lion was still out and about. Like, they partied that night. Patterson did have an inkling that, quote, the devil had eluded him yet again. But the next morning he followed the blood and did indeed find a dead lion. He was in disbelief and confirmed that the beast was dead. Like, he made sure it was dead. He stared at the body for the long time as if the beast could attack him even in death. It was a very surreal moment looking at this animal. It's like, this is it. This is what has been killing people, or one of the ones that have been killing people. In the book, he even says it was just a dead cat.
Yeah.
Which I hate, but like, okay. The massive cat was 9 feet and 8 inches long. To put that in perspective, the largest lion on record was 11 feet long. It took 8 men to carry it back to camp. There was a bullet to the heart and one to the back end. The news of the man-eaters had spread across the area because it was so bad, and before they knew it, they were getting congratulations letters in the mail. Congratulations on killing the man-eaters. Then they had another party. Like, they partied. But remember, there were 2 man-eaters. There were 10 days of peace. But the second man-eater came back for vengeance. An inspector general was outside and he heard a noise. Thinking it was some of the workers rummaging in his things, he was like, "Go away." And the noise stopped. There were paw prints all around his hut the next morning and a dead, partially eaten goat. The next night, Patterson set another trap and baited the area with both goat carcasses and some live goats, and took place in his favorite tree. It said that he had a favorite tree, like he did it so much that he was like, you know what, I like this tree. It's got that little limb there that's just comfy and it's good for your lumbar support.
It probably also had a good vantage.
Right. He said that this was an especially dark night. He thought he heard something, but he did not take the shot. The next day, there was a missing goat. He, along with some of the men, tracked the lion, but were greeted with the sound of loud roaring. The men immediately jumped up in the trees, but Patterson shot. There was no lion. The next night, Patterson set another goat trap. Silence. A twig break. Grass crunching. He shot and saw the lion go down, and there was blood. The beast lumbered off. Patterson was hopeful because of the amount of blood. But again, a dying animal is a dangerous one. So he waited until daylight to track the beast, hoping it would be dead. But this was not the case. Patterson continued keeping his nightly vigil, several more days of quiet. Maybe the animal was finally dead. Nope. Screams erupted from the encampment, like they had so many nights before. Patterson shot wildly as the night was unnaturally dark. The lion got away, and he took no victims. This is one of the first times they were able to scare the lions away before they took somebody. Patterson, he was sleep deprived and he was fighting a fever. He was not well. He was working during the day. He was hunting at night. He stayed in the tree again with the boy, to keep him awake. Patterson fell asleep. Of course he did, but he was awoken by a tug on his shirt. The night was bright. The moon was full. It was cloudless. The stars were shining. He could see the lion. Darkness came to light. If it was any other night, the lion would have been invisible. He remarked how calculating and cautious the lion was. It stalked closer and closer to the tree. The hunter was once again the hunted. Once it was close enough, Patterson fired, and then he fired again and again. An unnatural wail came from the lion as it ran away. This time, there was a lot of blood. The next morning, Patterson and company tracked the beast and soon found it wounded but still alive. A low growl erupted. Patterson shot. The lion charged. Patterson shot again. The animal fell, but then stood up and ragefully continued its attack. Patterson shot once more. The lion was still coming, and he was out of bullets. He joined his men up in the tree. The lion had 2 broken legs, but it still tried to climb the tree. At last, Patterson grabbed another gun and ended the lion's reign of terror once and for all. Years later, the cave of the man-eaters was found, and there were human bones and jewelry. About 25 years after the incident of the lions of Tsavo, the lion skins were sold to the Chicago Field Museum as they were made into rugs. So they were trophy rugs.
Yeah.
They were sold for $5,000, so $2,500 a piece. The Field Museum taxidermied them, and they're still on display today, along with the skulls. The hides were not properly preserved, so the lions that you see on display today are actually smaller than they would have been in real life. And I know from the pictures, and if you look them up, they look like tall and lean, but they weren't. They have photographs of them they put the bodies on almost like a pyre and carried them, throughout the encampment so everybody could see the man-eaters.
Right.
They were huge. These were big, healthy, chunky lions. They weren't these lean, pretty desert cats like they look like they are in the taxidermy. They would have weighed up to 400 pounds. And they would have stood almost 4 feet tall at the shoulders. Patterson claimed to know of 135 casualties, but believes there were more, maybe 300, as some people just went missing. But could they have truly eaten this many people? It doesn't sound likely, and indeed many people believe this story is grossly exaggerated. They did test the skulls and found that only 30% of the diet would have been human, so approximately 35 people. But the isotomic signatures left behind only tested for omnivores. Most of those people would have been vegetarians, so it would not have picked that up. It's possible that the lions were just supplementing their diets, as the skulls did have hair in the teeth from prey animals. It's also assumed that they would have used every bit of usable human meat, but they wouldn't have eaten every bit of every human. So there are some flaws in those scientific numbers. The skulls showed severe dental and jaw infection. This would have made it extremely painful to hunt. They possibly ate people because we're softer and we require less jaw strength to crush.
What? Oh boy, what a
compliment.
Statement, yeah.
Thanks.
We would have been much softer to crush.
We're much punier. But the skulls of the lions, the teeth didn't show evidence of crushing. Typically, a starving animal will crack bones and get every last bit of nutrition, the marrow, everything they can get. But the lions, they left the bones alone. According to an article on livescience.com in 2000, it was, quote, documented that one of the Tsavo lions was missing 3 lower incisors, those are the little bottom teethies, and had a broken canine, a sizable abscess in the tissue surrounding another tooth root. The second lion also had damage in its mouth, with a fractured upper tooth showing exposed pulp. For the first lion in particular, the pressure of that abscess would have caused unbearable pain, causing more than enough motivation for the animal to skip large, powerful prey and go for the much punier people. End quote. And yet, that was the lion with the painful abscess. That was the one that allegedly ate more people, according to Patterson and friends. If every animal with a tooth infection became a man-eater, we'd be in trouble. But as humans encroach on wildlife's home, it can make food scarce. Did they kill out of desperation and hunger? Did they simply, as some people think, did they kill for pleasure? You can't argue that they were beyond intelligent and even cruel. The lions never would attack guards. Many believed they really were devils. They did try leaving out poisoned meats. Lions never touched it. Some even say they were witch doctors from a lion-worshipping tribe. They were trying to protect their land from the white men and the growth of the railway and the bridge that would bring more people. Maybe they were evil spirits. We'll never know for sure. And now for a palate cleanser. Between the tales of grisly fates, Patterson does recount the beauty and majesty of Africa and the adventures he had there. They had a pet paw, which is a kind of like little deer that they captured, and he kept it as a pet, and it would actually jump on his table and eat from his hands, and I think that was very sweet. There was another incident on the site. There was a riot, a big fight, and apparently the guy who started it, he knew he was going to get in trouble. So he pretended to be super sick, like dramatically, like writhing in pain. The whole thing screaming, "Give me dawa," which is medicine. They found him to have no injuries. Colonel Patterson kind of ended up being a doctor as well on site. He could not find any injuries, so he figured, oh my gosh, this poor man must have internal damage. And everyone was like, nah, bro, he's faking it. It made me think of some of the stories you told from the jail. Like, this guy was super dramatic about it. But they put him in the hospital. Everyone said he was faking it. Patterson got a call in the middle of the night to go see a dying man. He made sure to grab a drink before leaving his accommodations. It turned out to be one of his friends who was just playing a trick on him. His friend was making fun of the other dude, was like, "Give me dawa." And Colonel Patterson dramatically looks at the camera and says, "Oh, I'll give you good dawa in the morning." So the morning is kind of when they would do trials. Like if someone was in trouble, it was kind of when they dole out justice. And so he demanded that the guy be brought to him. And the guy was like, "I'm too weak to walk." So Patterson said, "Okay, carry him." So they did. And of course he made a scene, writhing in pain. "Oh, I can't move. I'm dying. I need dawa." So Patterson's solution was to set fire to the man's bed. The man immediately got up and ran because he was fine. And everyone was like, "Oh, we knew he was faking, blah, blah, blah." The guy later came up to Patterson and was like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry." And Patterson was like, "We cool, bro." And then he went back to work. So that's what kind of guy he was. The lions were known to purr as they crunched and licked the skin off.
Oh, jeez.
Initially, the lions would attack one at a time. But then as they got more comfortable, they both began going in and attacking. A fun story, when lions eat, they start at the tail end and typically work up front to the head.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Patterson himself, he led an extraordinary life even after the Man-Eaters of Tsavo. This is what we know him for. But he, one thing about him, he may have had a torrid affair. Years later, he went on a safari adventure with a man and his wife, and the man was shot. It might have been suicide. We don't know. But,
what do you mean it might have been suicide?
Well,
Who was he shot by?
I'm just saying he was shot. We don't know.
That's it. That's all they know about it.
Yeah, he's dead. We don't know. Maybe his wife shot him. We don't know.
A bullet came out of nowhere and killed this man. Everybody was like, huh. And then just continued about their business.
Yet somehow that's more believable than the lions that killed and ate 135 dudes.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? During World War I, Patterson commanded the Zion Mule Corps and the Jewish Legion. This was the first Jewish military unit in 2 millennia. Unfortunately, Patterson did die before the state of Israel was created. He worked a lot with Jewish people. He became a huge advocate for the Jewish people. He became an Israeli hero. There's actually a photo of him with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's parents. In the 2000s, Patterson's ashes were moved and reburied in Israel so that he could be with his soldiers in death. In 1906, Patterson shot an eland, which is a kind of like wild deer thing, and had the head mounted, as one does. He thought it looked a little different, but it was just kind of cool. Turns out it was a rare subspecies, and it's named after him.
Oh.
Isn't that cool? Rhodesian...
Too bad it died.
I know. Rhodesian Ridgebacks were bred to hunt lions.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they were bred in Africa to hunt lions. And Connie Corsos, which is a breed of dog, it's like a giant mastiff, they have a bite PSI that is stronger than that of a lion bite.
That is impressive.
Honey badgers don't fear lions.
That's like an added note.
Yeah, it's just
and also, honey badgers don't fear lions.
They don't.
The only animal to not fear a lion is a honey badger.
Right? And before reading this story, I was totally prepared to say, lions don't really kill people. Like, they're more scared of you than you are of them. No, not necessarily.
Well, I mean, typically.
Not necessarily. A lion will stand its ground. Lion will fuck you up. But this story is so good. The movie is very good. I would encourage you to watch The Ghost in the Darkness. The movie does show your classic maned lions. Remember, these lions don't have manes. But I think that was more just Hollywood because it's a recognizable.
Yeah. People would be like, "Hey, what's wrong with these lions?" If it
because they kind of look sickly, they were girl lions. Fun fact: male lions are pretty scared of girl lions.
Yeah.
So that's the story of the man-eaters of Tsavo. I've read the book twice. I've listened to the audiobook, and I watched a few documentaries, and that was all before we started our podcast.
They talk about the Tsavo Lions. They actually don't have like an equivalent type of movie or story about hippos. You know why that is? No. Because hippos always kill a lot of humans. They love doing it.
They do. You guys, hippos are vicious.
Hippos are so much more dangerous than a lion.
Hippos are awful.
Hippos will kill you to just kill you. Mm-hmm. They won't eat you. They don't like you being alive, and they want that to stop, so they put an end to it.
Hey, I mean, you work with the public long enough, and that's just kind of how you feel about it. You know what I'm saying? But I thought, this story, it's so interesting. There's so many whys.
Why?
It's so creepy and it's so cool that it really happened and you can still go see. That's why I'm always asking you to take me to Chicago, because I want to go to the Field Museum. I need to see the pelts and I need to see the skulls.
I gotta let you know, being up real close to a lion is something.
So Clay has been intimately close with a lion.
Don't say it like that. I didn't hump the lion.
No, he didn't. He cremated the lion.
I did cremate the lion. We picked up from a zoo where a lion was put down due to some health issues, and we cremated his body. So I was very close to the lion's body, and they are very big in a way that you truly can't appreciate.
No.
Like, you go to the zoo and you look at them, and you're like, yeah, that's a big cat, but you don't really understand how big those things are, especially not until you've had to pick one up.
Right. And the one you picked up was an adolescent.
Yeah, it was a juvenile. It was not a fully grown adult. So the fact that it could get bigger, not only that it could get bigger, but was going to get bigger, is really something.
That's really cool. I mean, I hate the circumstances, but that is really, really cool. One time when we were at the zoo in Atlanta, it's my favorite zoo. This is not a lion story. I don't know why this made me think of, because of the zoo. So there was this little girl, and they have the big, beautiful tigers. And they have the glass enclosure. And this little girl, like this cute little girl, walked up to the glass and put her little hand up. And the tiger walked up. And it was going to be this really cute, beautiful moment. Of like, oh, hey, I'm having this experience with this crazy, amazing, exotic animal. Tiger turned around and pissed all over the glass.
It was quite a stream.
It was impressive. And I am so glad we couldn't smell it. Because know that would have been bad.
Oh, yeah, that would have been bad.
I ain't about that life. And then that same trip, we went to we saw some weird stuff that trip, didn't we? We went to the Georgia Aquarium, which is my favorite place in the world. Georgia Aquarium sponsor us. And we were looking at the beluga whales, and we're like, look how beautiful, what's happening?
This is my favorite thing that's ever happened at the aquarium.
It was one of those, you just stand there, and your expression doesn't change.
Right, he slowly floated up to look us in the eyes.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and then there was just a cloud. Clay, it was just this beautiful milky.
He popped a fat one right there in front of everybody, and they got that goofy looking smile on their face. He looked very proud of what he did.
He was. It was so much.
I was like, I don't know how thick the glass is, but if the glass is only, say, a foot thick, we were only about 2 feet away from this thing. It was that close to the glass.
Yeah, it was beautiful. He was right up next to us. We're like, oh my gosh, look how pretty.
And then he just blasted.
Yeah, and he popped a fat nut.
And then swam off, and we're like, look at that. It's a miracle of nature at work.
Our oceans are beautiful. But it was
salty.
Oh my goodness. I don't know how to end from that.
That's it, right?
I don't think we can top the beluga whale.
Should we? I guess the Tsavo Lions are not your typical cryptid, so we don't necessarily need to rate them.
We don't, but Clay, do you think you would have survived the Tsavo in camp?
Oh, no, if a lion wants you dead, you're pretty much dead.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It's not a lot you can do. You can maybe wound it or kill it alongside you, but I have seen how I have held a lion's claws.
You have held a baby lion's claws.
It's it's basically just a handful of knives that they're swapping at you. I did not get to admire the teeth because the lion that we cremated was decapitated.
Yeah, because it had neurological issues.
Right, they sent its head off for study to see. Fun story. It's not fun, but it is terrible. Back in the day when a lot of these zoos got started up, they got just a handful of lions. And because it would be easier to just make more lions by having them breed, they did that. Which caused a lot of inbreeding, a lot of degenerative, brain issues and that kind of thing. So this poor guy got one of those, and basically his brain was shutting down while he was, I don't know, the approximate age of a 18-year-old in human years. So they euthanized him.
Teenager lion.
They cut his head off, and they sent it off for study. Not only to help better address the neurological issues that he himself had, to see if they could help anyone else, but also to map their family tree to keep further inbreeding from happening. So that's neat, at least.
That's awesome. That's a very good on that zoo for being responsible. They probably had to.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
Sorry, I hit the table.
It wasn't a particularly old zoo, so they themselves didn't go out and get a bunch of lions and started breeding them. They just got, what was going around. It was yeah, we got lions for sale, and they get them. It's
can I interest you in a lion?
These are lions from the Hills Have Eyes franchise.
Yes! That.
Yeah, that pretty bad, but also very cool. I don't know. The lion's paws felt like if you've ever been to someone's house that has a leather sofa that is old and kind of worn. It has that worn leather feel to it. Mm-hmm. They're very thick.
Yeah.
And yeah, the claws are massive.
Were they soft, Clay? Like, were the paws pads soft or were they rough?
Well, that's why I described it like the old leather. I wouldn't really describe it as soft.
Right.
But I mean, like, if I don't know, if you had like a knife, I think you would have a hard time getting into the paw.
Sure.
It was very thick and tough. It's just, it was also kind of like soft and worn.
Aww.
So it was neat. I sat there and kind of like played with the paw for a little while. It was fun. It was just nice to touch.
Aw, that's sweet. Is it?
Maybe a little morbid.
That's a little morbid. I don't have any up close and personal lion stories, except for we're manifesting and we're going to go to Chicago sometime in the next year or two.
And there's going to be a lion there, I guess?
No, we're going to go see the Tsavo Lions.
Okay. So you'll have an up close and like personal encounter with a lion's corpse.
With their skin.
Like
their
I
pelts.
did.
Yeah, then we'll have something in common. Oh my goodness. There was recently a thing where Kenya wanted the lions back.
Yeah, I could understand that.
But, I mean, they were property of Colonel Patterson.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see both sides of that. And I'm not one for keeping animal pelts. Like, it's just kind of, it's unnecessary. You know what I mean? No offense to you if you do. I mean, taxidermy's fascinating.
I'm against going out and getting animal pelts, but if you already got one, I mean, the damage is done.
The damage
it's dead. What are you going to, keep the animal pelt.
But the preservation for the history, especially this kind of unbelievable history.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild story.
It is.
At a certain point, when it comes to like old artifacts like that, especially something that in this case is over 100 years old.
Right.
When it becomes sort of synonymous with an area or, a government or a group of peoples, that is their history, regardless of who bought and sold it before. So
that's fair.
I will say there is a precedent for Kenya to get those pelts back.
Well, so that being said, we're manifesting that we're going to go to Chicago soon.
Oh, before
then, because this story kind of makes me not want to go to Africa. But it was really neat.
All of Africa is not lions.
I know.
And like I just said, more likely to be killed by a hippo.
Much more likely to be killed by a hippo.
Less likely to be eaten by a hippo, but much more likely to be killed by one.
Facts.
Man, they love killing.
Boy, I love killing.
Boy, they love killing.
Well, anyway, folks, that's our show. That's the Lions of Tsavo. I love them. Go watch The Ghost in the Darkness. We're going to go make cute little chocolate treats for our family and friends. Bye, guys. See you later.